Right, I'm in Wales doing a Well camp. I'm on the summit of Cadair Berwyn. First time I've pitched up here, which is and the weather is really nice and there's not much wind, which is good. Perfect for testing a tent. So this is the Zpacks Duplex, and I've had this for about a year now. I've used it not a huge amount in the UK, I have to say, which I'll come into later why that is. I've used it abroad quite a few times, and I'm trying to make use of it this summer as much as I can. So I'm going to give you a rundown of the tent, the specifications. I'll show you pitching the tent, which is what I'm going to do now, how easy it is to put up, or how hard, and we'll take a little run around the tent, and I'll give you some thoughts. Right, really annoyingly, the wind's just picked up just as I want to pitch the tent. So yeah, at least you'll be able to get a good idea of what it's like pitching in windy conditions. The tent needs at least 6 pegs. So you need at least 6 pegs. You need 1 for each corner, and you need 1 for each of the ends by the doors, which keep the trekking poles up, which I'll show you now. The tent doesn't come with pegs, so you do have to buy them. And the tent doesn't come with a ground sheet either. I'll go through into what this ground sheet I've got here is in a bit. This is the package size of the tent. Right, so normally I put the ground sheet on after I've pitched, got the tent pitched, because otherwise it'll just blow away. I can't believe it's gone really windy now. Right, so it's important, the end with this logo here, the Zpacks logo, make sure you pitch that towards the wind because of the way the storm doors overlap. It'll make more sense once I've got it pitched up. So we'll make sure this is pitched towards the wind, which is this direction. Right, so like I said, you need 4 pegs. So I've got some ground hogs. So this, you have to tie out each of the 4 corners. Okay, so that's all of the 4 corners pegged down. Look at the ground's actually really nice here. It's not too soft, it's not too hard. Perfect. So the next thing you need to do is use your trekking poles. I've got some Lecky trekking poles which are collapsible. Now there is a recommended height for it, which I will put on the screen what that is. But to be honest, what I tend to do is just lift it up until it goes taut. Same on the other side. Tighten everything down and just adjust it until you're happy. So yeah, I don't really worry about the height so much. Right, so up here, this is where you tighten the guy line, and then this attaches into the ground. But first, you need to get tent pole in. So you've got this little reinforced bit here for your handle. Pop that in, then extend it up until it's taut, and then you have this loop here, which you then just, and you can change the length of that. So it's like a little bit further away, and then just try and keep it kind of parallel with the door. Just pop that in. You can adjust it later. I tend to then make a note of where I'm roughly at with the height. So yeah, in between 115 and 120 is where the height is at the moment. So let's get the other one done before it gets too windy. Again, pop it into there. And then we'll try and go up between 115 120. Put that in there. We'll make sure it's the same height. We don't really want them different heights, so I'm just going to extend this a little bit up to the same height, which was about 120. Perfect. You will notice that the floor floats, but that's what it's supposed to do. So the floor is actually supposed to float, which is actually quite useful because then I can get the ground sheet underneath, which is what I'll do in a second. So this is what the tent is looking like at the moment, which isn't too bad. What we'll do, just give that a tug, just to tighten that up a little bit. Get everything, all the pegs in nicely. Make sure it's nice and taut, looking good. Then we could just go and tighten each of the ends here. Then what we'll do is we'll get these storm doors closed. So hopefully you can see, I'll show you a bit better in a minute, the way this storm door overlaps. The wind is coming from this direction, so if we had pitched the tent the other way around, all the wind would be getting in here, which is obviously something you don't want. And people who've got the 3F Huel Lanshan, these will look familiar, and they connect to these loops here. So one there, and then again you just give it some tension. You want that nice and tight. Now it's a bit pitched, it's a bit, this rope's a bit close. I'm going to loosen that off here so I can move that away so it's not quite so close. There we go. It's just not quite as close. As with all these sorts of tents, it's just a bit of trial and error, and sometimes you just got to, mess about a little bit with the pitch until you're happy with it. Right, there we go. That's nice and tight, taut. So I'm not going to put the storm doors closed on this side yet. What I'm going to do now is, while the wind's calm, I'm going to get the ground sheet underneath here, and then I'm going to immediately put some stuff inside the tent, so it compresses keeps the ground sheet down rather than flying away. So yeah, this is actually a Six Moons design ground sheet. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put the name here, and there'll be a link in the description below. This is the large version, and it's just basically quite thin plastic. It's quite strong, and it just gives a bit of protection to the underneath here. There's no danger here. This is all grass. It's no rock. It's not rock or anything like that. So I'm not concerned at all. But it's worth doing for sure. So this is just a bit of a fiddly bit, I would say. The disadvantage, especially if it's wet, it's okay now because it's all dry, but if it's wet, obviously it's a bit messy getting the ground sheet down. So there you go, you can see the ground sheets underneath the tent now, which is still floating, the floor's still floating. Right, so we can tie this back now because we want to keep the storm doors open, and that's just a case of rolling these up. Nothing complicated, just a little toggle, and that's in. And same on the other side. And then this is the zip, which is, all this fabric here is very lightweight. It's lightweight for obvious reasons. However, I have actually ripped this tent, which I will show you in a minute. So here you can see the floor floating. Excuse the sand in there. I camped on sand on my last camp. Right, so just pop that in the corner. Another one in the corner over there. That one in the corner over there. And then that starts to, oh, it's looking stunning over there. Starts to weigh things down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get everything set up in the tent, and then we can have a little look around the tent. I can talk about some of the features inside the tent, and yeah, give you a bit of a rundown. Right, come on in and have a look at the tent. So about the light, the sun is starting to set over there, and I think I might get a really nice sunset, which would be great. So this is everything now set up inside the tent. A little bit messy, sorry, a bit messy in the corner there with some clothes. Now, it's a bit of a lumpy setup, and this tent, I could probably pitch it a little bit higher. I'm a bit concerned about the wind, so it's better to pitch it a little bit lower. So I could go up a little bit more on these trekking poles. Probably another, I don't know, another few centimetres. But I'll see how I get on. If not, I'll just leave it as it is. But just to give you a kind of a little tour around, it's not a huge amount to see inside the tent. So you've got this mesh here, which I have actually damaged. So actually on one of my first camps, and it was in Croatia, yeah, so you can see here I ripped it, which was totally my own fault. Basically I got a knife and I was trying to cut something. I was too close to the tent, and stupid, but the material is really thin, and that wind's picked up, as you can hear. Which is, so that's another reason for having it pitched quite low. Hopefully she'll hold up okay. So you can see she's rocking already. So yeah, this could definitely be an interesting test for this tent. So you can see there she's taking a bit of a rocking. Actually the wind's changed direction, which is really annoying, which means I've pitched it the wrong way. Because now the storm doors are back to front. But I'm just going to go around and just tie her down a bit, and see if I can just get her a bit better. Because you can see, yeah, she's taking a bit of a battering. Let's close that up. Right, so I've just raised the tent ever so slightly, make it a little bit more taut. But yeah, she's rocking and rolling. So one more thing we can do, we've got additional guy out points here, which actually lifts the head of the tent away. So that's what I'm going to do now. So yeah, I'm going to and then the same on this side, just to give it a bit of extra strength. Yeah, that's annoying. That wind's changed direction. It was coming from that way before, now it's coming from this way. Could be an interesting evening with the tent. But what I'll do is I'll wait for this wind to die down. I'll give you a bit more of a rundown on the inside. I'm going to do a bit of cooking, but basically from the outside You've got your go out points, and you need, like I said, you need at least 6, 8 to do both the sides of the tent. And yeah, there she is, duplex pitched, and we'll see how she does on this summit camp. Right, so the wind has calmed down, so the tent's not rocking quite as much now, and let's have a quick look inside before I start cooking my dinner. So you have 2 vestibules. I've got this one, and then on the other side here. As you can see, when the wind kicked up, it pushed everything up. It's not a problem when you're in here sleeping, but because yeah, the weight will sort that out. But yeah, there's a problem. But I've closed the storm doors on that side, which is where the wind was coming from, so hopefully that'll stop that from happening. And you see it's quite a big gap underneath, which is where the wind will be coming from. And I'll tell you a little story about that later as well, which is a potential negative about this tent. So there's not much to say from the inside of the tent. You have 2 pockets. You have 1 pocket on each side of the door, one here, and then another one here. They aren't particularly big, but they do an okay job. So it doesn't come with anything to hang. But you can buy stick-on attachments, which is what I've got here. So there's one here, and I put another one here. It does have a couple of loops on each end here, so you can hang stuff from there, or you could do you could put like a washing line there, but that's up to you. So you can get accessories and stick them on, essentially. And then the only thing to show in here is you've got this here which pulls the tent bathtub in a bit in case you need to do that. I don't tend to need to do that much. And the rain should then run down here so it doesn't then come inside the tent, it overlaps the bottom. And that's really all there is to kind of show you inside the tent. I have had 2 wide sleeping pads in here, and they just about fit. It kind of does push the bathtub floor out a bit, but I have managed it. It's bags of space for 1, for 2 people. It's cozy, but you can do it. I'll show you a little bit later me sleeping in it, and so you can see what the headroom is like once I'm kind of all inside the tent. So the Zpacks Duplex. This is the first summit camp I've taken this on. So I've taken the Duplex on. I've been up to Derwent Edge in it once. I've been down in the valleys in somewhere in the Peak District. I can't remember the name of it. And it was fine then, apart from the midges. I've taken this to Croatia, where I camped in it in Croatia. You can see the video for that here. It was perfect for that, except for a thunderstorm, a really bad thunderstorm, which flattened the tent. Yeah, absolutely flattened it. And I recently took into Portugal as well, which was fantastic because it's so lightweight. So lightweight. This is the spruce green version. I'll put the stats here so you can see what the weight is, etc. of it. And it was great taking Portugal. I did a trail, a video for which might be out now, might not be. I'll put a link if it is. If it's not, it could be soon. It was great, apart from when you needed to pitch it on places which weren't like this. So the first campsite we stayed in was fine. The second campsite, the ground was rock solid, and I couldn't get the pegs in at all. Well, no, I could get them in a bit, but I had to get loads of rocks on them, and it wasn't ideal. And then the last place we camped out was sand, and I didn't have the correct pegs for sand, so that was fun. So basically we had to get loads of bags and fill them with sand and then weight the pegs down so they stayed in. So we found a way, but the problem with trekking pole tents in general is they live and die by the guy out points, the pegs, if they come out, then it's game over. The tent pole is coming down, and your tent's going to end up in your face. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind with the Zpacks Duplex, is that it, in adverse conditions or the terrain, can really affect how you pitch this tent. And again, it's not necessarily an issue with the Zpacks Duplex, but trekking pole tents in general, it's a issue with. So, as you can see, one of the nice things about the Duplex is because it's quite see-through. It glows up nicely in the dark, makes for quite scenic shots as well. But there's no one around to see it, to see me in there, apart from the sheep. Whilst it is kind of a see-through fabric, the Dyneema composite, it's I mean, you can only kind of make out shapes. You can't really see anything. It's not see-through as such, but could be disconcerting, I guess. So one of the interesting things about this tent is it obviously doesn't have a zip, so you've got to close the storm doors with this buckle and loop here. You need to, well, you can see it, but when there's a bit of wind, it's a bit tricky, but there you go. And then the buckle, you need to, again, you might not be able to see this particularly well, but grab that here and then loop that around like so, and then that's the storm door closed. If you really need to, then you can tighten it down here, just give it a bit of a tug. That just tightens everything down a little bit. In terms of headroom up here, I'm sat up and I've got plenty of room, so that's fine. I am 5'10", so yeah, no problem space wise up there. Already a bit of condensation coming through there. And then sleeping wise, so as you can see, my feet are touching the tent at the bottom, but it is, like I said, I do have my rucksack here, so it is kind of, I could move up a bit more if my rucksack wasn't there. Sorry about this lighting. It's a bit horror filmish. But when I'm sleeping, I don't have a problem with my head touching, so that is fine. And this point here, where you can see, that's the outside guy, which pulls that out a little bit, which really does help. So, after having a night's sleep in the duplex, it wasn't a great night's sleep. It was noisy. It was quite a windy night. This material was making a lot of noise and it was flapping around. But I kind of knew that was going to be the case. Annoyingly, my Nemo tent's sleeping pad deflated as well, so that's added to the issue. But obviously that's nothing to do with the tent. But there was no condensation, so zero condensation on the tent, which was good. If I feel the inside, absolutely nothing at all. So that's good. My stuff's completely dry. I wasn't cold in the tent. I could feel the wind kind of coming in underneath
the storm doors, but it's quite warm, so that's not really an issue. So the big question: do I recommend the Zpacks Duplex? Yes and no. I think if you're doing a lot of through hiking, and especially if you're doing a lot of through hiking abroad, warmer climates, I think it's fantastic. It's so lightweight, it's so well made, the material's really tough, dead easy to put up, to pitch it doesn't take long at all. So I think from that angle, I think it's superb. The reason I would say no, if you're in the UK or a climate similar to the UK, where we don't get a lot of rain, although I know it is windy, but you know, nice sunny warm weather. We have a very short period of it. I think it's probably overkill for the amount of money that it costs. It's a very expensive tent. You have to import in the UK, you have to import it as well. But if you've got to pay taxes on it, that's a lot of money for something that you might not use that much. I think there's better options in the UK. Like I said, unless you're going to make the use out of it going abroad a lot of the time, or doing long through hikes in nicer weather. I don't think I would want this out in the snow, just because I think it'd be quite cold, because you've got full, you know, mesh here. I prefer something more enclosed. I wouldn't feel that safe in really high winds. The winds here was fine, but if you haven't, and again, this isn't so much an issue with the duplex itself, but tents in general. You know, if you haven't got ground where you can get the pegs in and the pegs are nice and firmly into the ground, here was absolutely fine. But if you're on terrain where that's not possible, then you're going to have issues. But it is a fantastic tent. There's no two ways about it. It's so well made, and if you think that you're going to get the use out of it, absolutely buy it. Absolutely buy it. And I think they just brought out a zipper version as well, which I would prefer myself. Doors. I would much prefer a zipper version. So if you can get your hands on that, then do that. Right. Thanks for watching. If you've got any comments, if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Also, tell me what you think. What do you think of the Zpacks Duplex? If you're from the UK and you've got this tent, do you get a lot of use out of it? I'd love to hear. What are your use cases for it? And if you're not in the UK, yeah, how do you find it? How does it work for you in your country, whether it be in the United States, Canada, or wherever else? And right, from Wales, the Berwyns, the summit of Cadair Berwyn, I will see you on the next one.